You played before the war?
Hmm?
Where did you play before the war?
Oh, we used to play in the street, that's all. There was no swings or nothing then. No roundabouts for kids to go on. Nothing like that. So we used to play in the street or down the dike at the back of the house. Upsetting people.
How old were you when the war started?
Pardon?
How old was you when the war started?
Oh, I was 16.
Yeah, but you worked in an office when you left
Yeah,
school.
I was 16 before the war started.
You left school at 14 and worked in an office?
Yeah, I left school at 14 and done a few odd jobs, and then I worked at Cooper's
roller bearings
in the drawing office doing the blueprints and that for the machineries.
And you went in the army when you...
I can't hear you.
Went in the army when you were 16?
Yeah, I was in the Territorial Army first. I joined that first.
Before the war started?
I was in there 2 years before the war. And I was, 17 when the war started?
17 when the war started.
17, yeah. What else?
Describe what it was like in the army.
I got called up before the war started, and we was guarding German prisoners, internees. Before the war started, they collected them all up and took them in camps. And I was attached to the 1721st Lancers and the Death and Glory boys. And we was guarding these German internees. Then I got transferred back to my regiment again. And
then you
started going to...
and you joined the convoys?
Yeah, well, that's later. Then we went to Northwich in Cheshire and around there. And then when the bombing started at Liverpool, we used to have to go in there in the afternoon. All the people would leave the town, and we'd have to go in there in the afternoon and stop there all night to put out the fires and that what the incendiary bombs were dropped.
That's at Liverpool?
And then that was at Liverpool.
That's at Liverpool.
And then we got transferred back somewhere else, and they asked for volunteers to go into the convoy escort with the Merchant Navy. So I volunteered and another fellow, and we went as a pair. We went to Edinburgh first to train onto the guns, because that was a different type of gun what we used in the army. That was a French Hotchkiss gun, and we was there just 3 weeks, just enough to get to know about the gun, and then we were sent back to Southend, where all the convoys used to
leave from,
collect before they went out, and we was on the machine guns on these merchant seamen ships,
merchant navy ships,
and I was on a Swedish ship. No, Norwegian ship. Because none of them could speak English hardly, so we didn't know much about that. But we was on the guns. We had to be on 24 hours a day. There was two of us. We'd be on 4 hours at a time while we was at sea. Then we'd come back after we'd been to wherever we was going. We went to Edinburgh, all over the place, by sea, all over the country, all over the world, nearly. But when we come back, used to come off the boat, come back to the Southend Pier, because that was our headquarters, the big pier, what's over 1.5 miles long at Southend. But we was all on there.
Did you have any ration books in the army?
Oh, wait a minute. And we used to get on there, and we'd have a rest for 3 days, and then the convoy would be forming up again, and you'd be going on to another boat. And we went on to the Scottish boat called the Glen Tilt. We was on that for a while, and we was only doing coastal wars for that, like from London to Papazi Power Station right down into Scotland, picking up coal and bringing back to the Scottish to the power stations.
Well, so here, what did you do when you weren't fighting?
There was nothing like that there, was there?
Well, that's what it's got here.
Anyhow, we as regards the ration books, we never had any ration books in the army, but when I was with the Merchant Navy, when we had or 3 weeks leave, they used to give us a ration book, which was equivalent to double the amount of any civilians.
Well, they got twice as much as
That
us.
was because we was with the merchant navy, you see. From there, after I'd been on there for over a year, we got called back to the regiment again at Cheshire, and then we moved up to Scotland. There we trained and done one or two other things, and we got our orders to move out, and we got all our stuff on the train and everything, and the Germans came over and bombed it, and we lost all our lorries and bring gun carriers. So we carried on going down to Leith, down to Leith Harbour, and then we was shipped out over by boats to the big American boats that were waiting to take us to Singapore. Well, we thought we were going to the Far East at first, but after we got halfway there, we had orders to leave the convoy and go to Singapore. So after we left the convoy, there was three American ships and 2 escort ships, and we got to Singapore. But the place was in a hell of a state because it had been bombed day and night, carpet bombing really. We disembarked from the boats and got on the lorries and went up to over the bridge into Malaya and up to Johor Bahru or Kuala Lumpur,
Yeah, well,
the place.
You was took prisoner at Singapore.
Now, yeah, and when, of course, the Japanese were coming down and we were being pushed further and further back until we got over into Singapore. And there we had to defend that because we hadn't got no aeroplanes then because they'd all been shot, and the 2 British boats what was there looking after the 2 Navy boats, they were sunk. So we just had to defend it, and we was told to hold on to 14 days because help was coming. But we held on for 23 days and nothing come, and all the Japanese planes were coming over in big waves and just carpet bombing everybody, and more civilians were getting killed than what the soldiers were. So
Then when you was took prisoner, you was took to Japan.
so the general in charge, they just surrendered. That's where I got took prisoner of war then. But
And they took you to Singapore, Japan. Took it to Japan.
oh yeah, before that we was in Singapore and we was loading Red Cross ships up with army equipment, which shouldn't have been allowed anyhow. And then after that we got shipped up to we got shipped up there in Malaya into Burma to build the railroad, the Burma Railroad, what they call the Railroad of Death now. And I was in the bridging and buildings party, what was at the front of everybody. We used to go and survey and build the huts and build the bridges for the rest of the people to come and lay the lines and the tracks and all that. And after we finished that, we were brought back to Singapore, and then we were shipped out again to Japan. And on the way to Japan, we got as far as one of the American islands. I just can't think. And we got torpedoed by the Americans. And we had no Red Cross signs on the ships. They just hit 26 ships and sunk them in 10 minutes. And there was 1,500 of us prisoners on this ship, the Hofuka Maru it was called. And there was 221 of us got off, the rest were all killed, and 21 of us came home out of that 221, the rest all died. And then we got picked up. I was in the water for over 8 hours, and then we got picked up by the Japanese fishing boats what was out there, and they took us into Manila, into the Philippines, into Manila, and there we were rigged out again with some clothes, because I hadn't had clothes for years. And we got we made our way onto Japan, where we went to Northern Honshu. That's one of the islands off of Japan, and there we was working in the mines, getting out materials for making lead and zinc and stuff. And then we was bombed once or twice by the American airplanes when the war was getting towards the end. And then
You was put on the
they dropped the atomic bomb, which was 90 miles away from us at Hiroshima.
You was put on the Burma Railway.
I told her about that.
Oh.
And we was 90 miles off of there when they dropped the bomb, and it was just like somebody blew bombed the outside of your house where we was in the hut. And we was then, after they surrendered, the Yanks came in. Well, there was only 3 or 4 of them come in, and they said that we got to put red crosses on top of our huts, and they would drop us food and that. And well, they came in and dropped the food, but they came too low, and the parachute never opened. And they smashed the huts and killed 1 or 2 people who'd been all through the war and got killed by these big drums dropping. And then there was clothes in them, American clothes they were. And then we was sent to, what's the name of their big place? The harbour. The big harbour in Japan anyhow. I can't remember now where it was.
Kobe.
Where?
Was it Kobe?
Kobe? Kobe?
No, I can't remember. Anyhow, we were sent there. We went on the train, and we came through the place where the bomb had been dropped, and everything was black, flattened. There's nothing standing, only a few old bits of concrete wall and that. It was all flattened out for miles, 50-mile radius that cleared. And we came into this big harbour where they'd signed the peace treaty, and we was put on an Australian aircraft carrier, and from there we went to Australia, and we stopped there.
Tell them you were 6 stone when you was relieved.
Wait a minute, and we stopped there for about 6 or 7 weeks when I was or
You was
something.
there months.
Something for quite a while anyhow, to recuperate. And they used to give us 4 pints of milk a day. We used to have to drink 4 pints of milk a day so that we got fat.
You were 6 stone when I was liberated.
When I was released, I was 6 stone 7.
And 11 stone.
My original weight was 11 stone something.
You was 11 stone when you left Australia.
So I was 6 stone 7. So they built us up to make us look well before we come home.
Put on 5 stone in 4
And
weeks.
we came home on a cargo ship, and there was some reporters on there writing books. They kept asking us questions and that, and we was telling them what happened, and they wouldn't believe us. They said it's a load of rubbish. They wouldn't believe us.
Well, they do now because they know it's all come out. They didn't believe him at the
There
time.
we went into Southampton. We went through a medical. Some old boy, about 80-year-old, I think he was getting paid.
Passed them
For
all
how many he
A1.
could put through.
Passed them all A1.
Yeah, he passed us all A1. And we was there that night, and the next day we was on our way home.
So you was in the army another 6 months before you got demobbed.
Yeah, I got demobbed another 6 months after.
Yeah.
I was in there altogether from the war start, just before 39.
Up to 45. Up to 45.
Yeah, before the war started, 39. And I came out in 1946.
46 when we got married.
Anything else?
Is that anything else?
Oh, the jobs I'd done after that was I worked at Anglicaners, Bullers, whatever.
Well, Boolers then.
Yeah.
Anglicaners.
I was working there and unloading peas and stuff for the piners. Then I went into the warehouse, was in charge of the warehouse. And then from there, I changed my job and went to
Full packs.
ProPax, yeah. There I was in charge of jobs at cannon industry there. And from there I went to
Sugar beet.
Savages, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Savages engineering. I was moulding there. And from there I went to
Sugar beet.
Cooper Roller Bearings and
Yeah.
doing in the moulding factory there in the foundries. And from there,
And he's been skiving ever since.
after that I went there with Kears. And I was there for the rest of my life then, you know.
Till he had to leave when he got
And that's about all.
redundant. That's a lot.
Oh, thanks.